Once upon a time, I had 3 friends. At first glance, they all might seem totally different from each other. Michael, the youngest, dresses like his mother is still picking his clothes for him. Lucia, on the other hand, is so casual visually, she could fulfill the role of a villager in Minecraft almost naturally. And finally, we have Albrecht. And Albrecht, unlike the others, pays close attention to his choice of clothes. Every single piece has to work harmoniously together. Now, as for the work, Michael is still going to school. He's about to graduate and is currently drenching in anxiety. The world is slowly unfolding in front of him like a flower under the sunlight. He has ideas for the future, interests that somewhat captivated him at an early age. Lucia has a day job at a grocery store, and besides worrying about dropping another bottle of wine or have customers hang on to her like ticks, her mind is plagued with bills because she just moved out from her parents' home. And unfortunately, because of that, there's very little time to spare for her book that she's currently writing. Albrecht is unemployed, or at least what most people would consider to be unemployed. He has quit his well-paying job to fully focus on his artistic journey. It's not as rewarding yet, but definitely shows some fruit. Now, what relationship I have to these people isn't important, at least not yet. What's important here is that, despite their differences, all these people share one similar trait. Passion. The urge to explore the field that they indulge in, to become the very best in it. One might feel a bit more scattered than the other, but it's the fact that there's a glowing spark inside each and every one of them. A spark that all burns them in a different way. So one day we invited Michael and his family for supper, because his mother is the sister of mine, and since they haven't indulged in family drama for a whole week, it was finally time. It's quite funny how people who would consider us their flesh and blood do not shy away to highlight our foibles. Anyways, not to get carried away, Michael, just like me, likes to play video games. So on the same night we decided to play the Silent Hill 2 remake together, switching controllers from time to time rather than drowning in trash talk. In the midst of jump scares and laughter, he told me about some of the projects that he had in mind. He mentioned people his age are all over social media becoming the next big thing. If you consider being TikTok famous the next big thing, of course. Point is that life kind of speaks to him, so eventually he tried a little bit of everything until he stuck with editing and movies. If he's not busy going on a losing streak in League of Legends, he's watching one movie after the other. And surprisingly enough, he actually knows his stuff. Although, that's all there is to it. Besides watching a few tutorials and downloading a software for writing scripts, he kind of got stuck on the theory of things. Not because he's too lazy, not because he's too incompetent, it's this conflict inside himself that he doesn't seem to know how to resolve. He wants to do something unique, something the world hasn't seen before, something only very few have managed to pull off, much less a high school grad. He wants to do something that would leave his friends baffled, but not in a bad way. He doesn't want to embarrass himself with his work of art, and strives for something that would knock everyone off their feet. So naturally, in a world full of creatives and ideas that have been abused to the point it turned them into platitudes, he's left with a deep well that is filled to the brim with fear and expectations. It's sad to see a young person torturing themselves like that, somebody who is blessed with ideas, but never gives them the opportunity to grow, to prosper. At the beginning I mentioned how all these 3 people are linked with the same problem, but struggle all in a different way. Lucia, my childhood friend, somebody who I know since elementary school. You could say we kind of saw each other grow up. Times where we spent all day together, times where we haven't spoken for weeks. Yet, whatever happened, we always found a way back to each other. It's funny how drastic interests can switch with time. I, for example, never expected to go down the route of an artist. She, on the other hand, hated books, despised them. There's been a time when we were still kids, called her landline, back then where we didn't have any phones, and I asked her if she wanted to come to the cinema with me. My mom and sister damn near forced me to indulge in social activities, told me to call all these people that I didn't even like, and made me ask them out. So back to the story, her mom picks up and tells me she's grounded until she reads 30 pages from whatever book, I don't remember the name of it, as punishment for what later turned out to be her TV addiction. So fast forward, she's now writing her own book, owning shelves that are buried with no breathing room whatsoever. Not too long ago, we went out to get some coffee. Just talk. I helped her move, and she kind of felt in debt to me, so she invited me. It was like looking at somebody who's traveled a long time and misses the feeling of home. She also started smoking, which kind of emphasized that all. Quite shocking since she was never the type of person to drink or party, so I couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? It was tragic in a way. It felt like she was waiting for somebody to ask that question, waiting for somebody she could confide in. Whatever she went through later in life, just like me, she used writing as a way of expression. Had a bad day at work, channel it, write it. Left with heartbreak, channel it, write it. This one thing that almost seemed like a safe harbor, a place you could find shelter in when the storm is coming. She told me how giving up on her dream to write is coming close. The thing that once saved her now tormented her. The storylines are intricate, complex, but not in a good way, because she, just like Michael, insists on making something that hasn't been done before. Or perhaps she's just afraid that it isn't unique enough. She desperately writes for the purpose of making something new, something difficult, rather than making her story unfold the way it naturally should, which kind of left her stunned. Stuck on the same page for I don't even know how long. You could see it was eating her alive, overcomplicating what once used to be so simple. And talking about the struggle, this finally brings me to the last person, Albrecht. We're not close by all means. He's related to the husband of my sister, and we only get to really talk on certain occasions, birthdays, etc. Last time we spoke, he mentioned how he feels sick and tired of his job, and after landing his first gallery and even selling a few of his paintings, he finally decided to quit and fully endeavor into the life of an artist. Usually doesn't tell much about it, but I can't blame him. Not everyone in the family is as open-minded. Point is, the first time I met Albrecht was when the husband of my sister had his first birthday, and we as a family were all invited. That was almost 8 years ago. I was like 13 or 14 back then. Regardless, he has shown some of his work. It was decent, nothing compared to what he does now, but solid nonetheless. Though back then I didn't really pay any attention to it because I was busy playing with the other siblings. Only when I grew up and started drawing myself, I have finally seen this man for who he really is. In a way, it's funny because I have sold drawings of mine even before him, despite starting a few years later. The difference was I made fan art and used the momentum of social media, back then when TikTok dropped, started selling the very moment I got lots of traction. He, on the other hand, always stayed true to himself. He made his art, his work. I asked him once why he doesn't want to try something else, and he replied that he's suffering at his job right now, and he would really like to live off his art. But if the art he made brought him no joy for the sole purpose of making something that sells, that appeals to a large audience, it would just be another job. And he's already making hella money, to hell with that. It's funny and sad at the same time how much I relate to every single one of these people. Just like Michael, I'm sometimes afraid to explore a video idea because I think it's not unique enough, not grand enough to be explored. Just like Lucia, I sometimes find myself thinking about how I could make narrative shots weirder, more special, something I haven't done before. I find myself thinking for hours whether the drawing I want to make really tells a new story. And just like Albrecht, I know what it's like to walk a path that you could call your own. In fact, I've seen both sides of the medal. On one, hijacking myself on the work of another to get many, many eyes on my work. On the other, putting in a lot of effort because there's nothing else but me and my work that can captivate somebody on the other side. Perhaps I feel just like these people because we all share the same interests. Not necessarily the same niche, but just from a creative standpoint. Perhaps I feel just like these people because we all seek to be unique, original. Every single one of us has a thirst to discover something that they could call their own. Perhaps I feel just like these people because they're not real and I made them up. Used them as a personification for all the curses of originality.
Hey, have you seen my... What the f*** are you doing?
Fascinating.
What's fascinating?
You are.
What the... Thank you. Jimmy, are you okay?
You've come such a long way. Making horrible, disgusting, atrocious artworks. I mean, absolute abominations. So this, I just can't help but keep wondering, how are you not afraid to start your journey anew?
You mean making my own art?
Yes.
Dude, I was hella afraid, but I mean you gotta start somewhere, right?
Right, but How do you start if nothing interesting comes to your head? You know, nothing new, nothing anybody has explored
You
yet.
started thinking about writing again. Emphasis is on the thinking part.
I just don't know what to do. You know, I want to write, I really do. But what if I just turn out to be another throwaway story that people have told a billion times? I'll talk about love, be corny, revenge. I mean, our shelf practically screams vengeance. No, I feel so stuck.
Hey, you remember Berserk, right? The #1 rated manga of all time, with the author people called the father of dark fantasy?
Sure.
Well, if you page through this volume, you'll find Berserk prototype. You know how it all started? And I take you're familiar with Griffith.
Son of a...
Yes, that one. Well, in this one, he looks a little bit different.
Hold on, I've never seen this before. Wait, this girl looks exactly like him. Her name is Fricka? What the f***?
Exactly.
But how?
It's simple, really. Look, Jimmy, unlike you, he doesn't need a 10-step plan of how to go to the toilet. No, he had this idea and just wanted to write about it. He didn't overthink it. Because he started and didn't leave it an idea, we are now holding this masterpiece in our hands.
Right, but if he was able to turn this into this, it all means I don't think I can be like the greatest mangaka of all time.
Perhaps not, who cares? Point is, it will be a pity not to try. You know, and it's not about discovering anything new either, you know?
What then?
It's your way of telling a story. Look, I'll give you an example. You could have 5 directors and give them the task to make a movie about love. I'll bet you $1 million that each and every one of them will come up with a different way of telling this story. The premise might be the same, but the outcome could unfold drastically different. No, one might make it abstract, direct, indirect, open-ended, chaotic, tragic, self-love, polygamy. You see where I'm going with this?
Right, but how do I know I'm doing the right thing? How do I know I'm good enough, unique enough? How do I know I am the next Berserk?
Jimmy, you mother... You remember what Buff Larry always says? Make a story you would want to read, a movie you would want to watch. It's not about being the next Berserk, it's about being the next you. If the story is giving you a headache, good, but don't overthink it for the sake of pleasing somebody else. Once you start, just like me with art, you will come across so many sources of inspiration that you will have no choice but make something of your own. But the important part is that you start. You can't just spawn skill inside of you.
Dude, but that could take years.
Well, as of right now, you wasted a good 5 years thinking and not doing a single thing about it. Didn't see you complaining about that.
Alright, don't gotta be so harsh.
Anyways, look, I never said that it was going to be easy, but I'll just use myself as an example one last time. Sometimes when I make... Actually, you know what? F*** it. Every single time I make a video, I'm afraid that it's not unique or good enough. But whenever I sit down and take the simplest of ideas, just give it a try, you'd be surprised of all the things I discover.
You know, you do talk a lot, you know that, right?
Well, I'm glad we finally sorted this thing out, and I guess I will see you in 6 months then, and hopefully not empty-handed.
Right.
So, with that being said, for the love of God, fuck off!
God damn it.
Oh man. The vision I had for this was so different from what I delivered. I wanted actors in this so bad, but the city I live in has a skill ceiling of a horrendous skit on TikTok. Despite being somewhat disappointed, I still feel like this is an important topic to talk about. It's good to seek originality and in a way aim for the best outcome possible, but as soon as it starts hindering you or turn into perfectionism, it becomes a burden. In my opinion, it's impossible to come up with something 100% original anyways, because you are practically being influenced literally from birth. Anyways, I apologize for this video being subpar, but I wanted to try something new, you know, and be a little bit more original. Don't forget to check out my website if you are interested in my art. And with that being said, truly thanks for watching guys, and I will see you in the next one.